Hey guys, welcome back to Jurassic Collectibles. So today I'm super excited to be taking a closer look at this. It's the brand new 2018 Iguanodon from Papo. You can find the item featured in today's review and more at everythingdinosaur.com. Check out their site today. Iguanodon being one of my personal favourites growing up, this herbivore was actually pretty popular around the time that Jurassic Park came out, although it didn't feature in the films. Iguanodon was actually originally pictured as having its thumb spike on its nose. There's a complete abomination that still exists to this day in Crystal Palace Park in London, where they actually have what people thought the Iguanodon originally looked like. And because they only found one thumb spike, they assumed that maybe it went on the nose. It's quite interesting to see the evolution of people's perception of this particular dinosaur. Really nice to see Papo tackling this one. There are a few problems I have personally with this model, but let's get stuck in and take a closer look at this thing. Taking a quick 360 of this figure on the turntable, I really like the patination going along the tail. It's reminiscent of the patination that we've had on the Acrocanthosaurus this year. Again, reviewed on the channel, link is down below. The only feeling I get from the paint job is that it might be a little bit overly grey. There's an overuse of the colour grey all over the body, and unfortunately it all merges together. I can see they've tried to use different tones of grey, but unfortunately they are so similar that it seems to all blend in together. The other thing that I feel is a little bit detrimental to the look of this piece is the sculpt of the jaw, which is articulated, but it actually adversely affects the look of this dinosaur, because where it joins with the cheeks, there is a very clear and prominent line where the cheek overhangs. And for me personally, this takes away from the look of the piece. Okay, so let's take a closer look at this thing. Starting off with this beautiful head sculpt, we do have a very realistic looking dinosaur skull here. Very nicely seated eyes and very nice sculpted scaling all across the head. Very, very nice, and nicely sculpted and painted beak. As I said, the main problem I have with this is the way that they've done the articulated jaw here. There's a very visible seam running under the cheek, and particularly in the corner of the mouth, you've got this very unsightly gap, which I would say just adversely affects the look of the sculpt. The jaw is articulated, so it can open up. Unfortunately, when it opens, there is a sharp line of flesh exposed where it sort of ends. And for me, again, that affects the look of the piece. So unfortunately, the jaw mechanism on this one lets it down, and I would have preferred no articulation to this because I feel this just needs a little bit of polish. The interior of the mouth has been painted and weathered, very nice indeed. And the sculpt overall is very, very nice on this head sculpt. I can't really say anything bad about the sculpt. It's just this mechanism for me lets down the head. As we move down into the neck, really nice fine scaling going on and nice creases. As we move into the shoulder area, again, nice creases and clear musculature. You can see the scapula protruding through. As we move down the arm, you can see there's nice squared off scales going on. Nice detailed hands, very nicely sculpted and painted and weathered. There's those famous thumb spikes, which I believe we think are for defense. So they could have used those defensively and maybe for gripping trees. You can see here the skin is being pulled away from the torso here. Really nice feeling of tension there. Nice veining going into the torso. You can see this grey sort of airbrushed paint job that's been done. Unfortunately for me, it feels like the different tones of grey all sort of blend into one. And I get the feeling that maybe this dinosaur is a little bit too grey. But I can see they're going for a naturalistic paint scheme. Really lovely sculpt around this area here at the top of the hips, where you've got this lovely crease here. As the hips meets the torso, you can see lovely creasing here, lovely musculature in the leg. A really beautiful sculpt from Papo. You can't really fault their sculpts, they're absolutely beautiful. They've gone for cross-hatching on the undersides of the feet, like they did with the, I believe it was the Acrocanthosaurus, or maybe the Therizinosaurus. Both reviewed on the channel, links are down below. Really nice creases and scaling going along this nice thick tail, really cool. Same on the opposite side. I love this patination going on here. Again, feels almost inspired by aquatic life. Again, nice clear musculature. Contrast in the pose, this leg being back, this one being forward and lifted. So that makes for a dynamic pose on the shelf. Nice creases going under here, a nice feeling of the tension of the skin there. You can just faintly make out the ribs coming through. And there you can see the scapula coming through again. Really nice creases and scaling going on as we move back up the neck. And we're back to that beautiful head sculpt. Just a shame about that jaw mechanism. So just how big is this figure? Let's bring in the tape measure. You're looking at just over 4 inches tall, which is about 10.5 centimeters. In terms of the length, you're looking at about just under 10 inches, about 9.5 inches, which is about 25 centimeters. Size comparison time, let's bring in the 2018 Amargasaurus figure by Papo. Again, reviewed on the channel, link is down below if you want to see that one reviewed. You can see these two scale up quite nicely next to each other as two herbivores. Next, let's bring in the formidable looking Acrocanthosaurus 2018 repaint from Papo. Again, reviewed on the channel, link is down below. But you can see actually these two pose really nicely next to each other. You can see that the Acrocanthosaurus is kind of coming in down low with its jaws, while the Iguanodon is kind of holding up its head to avoid the bite. So actually these two complement each other really well. Next, let's bring in the 2018 Therizinosaurus from Papo, my personal favourite for this year. And you can see these two display really nicely next to each other. This one has been reviewed on the channel, link is down below. But actually these two complement each other as well on the shelf. You can see the Therizinosaurus is kind of reaching out with its claws and the Iguanodon is kind of looking up towards the eye line of that creature. So they do actually display quite nicely next to each other. Next, let's bring in a familiar sculpt. This is a Tyrannosaurus Rex from Papo. It's one of the repaint versions that we've reviewed on the channel. And you can see that they display quite nicely next to each other with the Iguanodon looking up curiously and the T-Rex roaring on. And lastly, here's our good friend, it's Off-Color Alan. And you can see he displays quite nicely next to the Iguanodon. The Iguanodon will be a bit bigger in real life, so you could say this is almost like a juvenile Iguanodon next to Alan here. So there we have it, guys. That was today's look at the brand new 2018 Iguanodon from Papo. Interestingly, in this light, it doesn't look too bad. That seam around the jaw area isn't so visible. But if I turn the model around, you can see it looks completely different and unsightly. So you might find that on your shelf, you can display this thing in a way that it looks really pleasant. But for me, that jaw articulation just spoils the sculpt ever so slightly. The grey I can actually put up with. It's not too bad. It feels quite naturalistic, almost like an elephant's skin, but it does feel like the darker tones and the lighter tones blend into one. Let me know what you guys think. I'll be interested to hear your thoughts. In the meantime, rate, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Now you've seen it reviewed, why not pick up your own at everythingdinosaur.com. Link is in the description.